should be on already, but I wait till it's already completely 100% on. So welcome everybody. Sorry for that quick delay at the beginning. It takes a while to figure out if we're streaming. Welcome to the Rabbi Haas Interviews, or the Rabbi Interviews. We're here with Rabbi Brad Bloom, who consented to be interviewed. It's kind of like, as he said, Jerry Seinfeld interviewing somebody in a car, because he is in a car going from place to place visiting congregants. Although I'll invite him to lift his camera in a different position, since we're seeing only his mouth and the bottom part of his nose and his seatbelt. There we go. Beautiful. So we have people, a couple of people are live on Zoom. We'll invite to ask questions. We have people who are on YouTube, and of course, people who watch this later. It's a pleasure to continue these interviews after a hiatus for the high holidays. And I know Rabbi Bloom was very busy as well. So who is Rabbi Bloom? Well, he is currently, as many of you know, the rabbi in Hilton Head. And if you haven't been to his wonderful congregation, Beth Yam, it is a wonderful place, a wonderful Reform synagogue. So obviously he studied at Hebrew Union College, as most rabbis do. He's been a rabbi for over 30 years and has been loving living in the Low Country. He is he came here from Sacramento, where he was the rabbi in the community that many remember, Congregation B'nai Israel, that actually had a famous arson, unfortunately, just as he started, set by a couple white supremacists. So that's synagogue, but a wonderful synagogue in San Francisco. He studied at the University of Maryland, went to Pikesville High School, and he's from the Maryland area, specifically Baltimore. He's got a beautiful daughter named Leah, and a granddaughter named Wesley. Grandson, sorry, Wesley, and a wonderful wife named Linda. He is a musician, a poet, a columnist. He teaches at the university. And as I just found out, he's a Renaissance guy. You can read his editorials every week. And it's an absolute pleasure. Not only that, he's a close personal friend and helped to marry my wife to me, something that my wife to this day has not forgiven him for. But I think we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So it's a real pleasure. We're interviewing a rabbi, I think, for the first time during all these interviews. A lot of them have been politicians or nonprofits, but it's really great to be able to interview a rabbi from this area, meaning only an hour away. And even though it's an hour away, there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. So first of all, Rabbi Bloom, what led you to be a rabbi?
I don't even know where to begin, but I'll say this. When I graduated my undergraduate degree from the University of Wisconsin and in Madison, and then went to get a graduate degree in clinical social work at the University of Maryland. So I started getting a job here and there. They said, why don't you teach religious school? And I went back to my home congregation and I started teaching on Sunday mornings. I taught in Washington, D.C. I hung out with some rabbis. And what I learned by talking to these rabbis, that I had a love of ideas and a love of history, and that I really looked up to them. And they said, well, why not be a rabbi? Why not? So I decided to, against my better judgment, I decided to go to Cincinnati, where they had an interim, what you would call a convocation for people interested in being a rabbi. I would ultimately, at that meeting, meet my future wife, believe it or not, coming down from Ohio State with a group of people who were interested in being rabbis. I think I, in many respects, became a rabbi because I wanted to learn how to be a Jew. I've been a Jew all my life, but being a Jew that is a knowledgeable Jew, going into the sources and being able to help people and work with people which I thought was a strength, was another reason I could combine both of those interests. And it ultimately led to a good, I hope this thing, after all these years, a good fit. And it was starting with me first, and then learning what Judaism was really about as a young adult, and immersing myself in its languages and in the culture of the seminary, and more rabbis, and getting practice as student pulpits like Rabbi Haas has done. And I think it was a journey. I think the journey still continues, because I'm always reevaluating, particularly in these later years, why am I a rabbi? And I think it's probably a different answer in some respects.
We're having some technical difficulties here, Rabbi Bloom.
Was when I was a youth.
Having some technical difficulties. We'll see if we can get him back. There you go. He's back. All right. We lost you for a second. So was Sacramento, the synagogue in Sacramento, your first pulpit? Obviously, it's hard to get a big pulpit coming out of school.
No,
so when did you
no,
go
I
out of school?
started in, yeah, I was an assistant rabbi at Congregation Beth Am in Palo Alto, Los Altos Hills, for 3 years. And then I received my own pulpit in Sinai Temple in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, which is a university town. I was the rabbi at the congregation there. I did that for 8 years, had a great time. Our daughter was born in Champaign. And then go west, young man, again. So I accepted the invitation to be their rabbi in Sacramento for about 14 years, and had a unique experience, definitely a unique experience. So then ultimately to Hilton Head, where I've been for 11 years.
Pretty nice. You've gone from coast to coast.
Yes,
From the middle as well.
Yes.
Excellent. And I know where Illinois is because I'm going to Indiana. My wife's family's from there, and they're really next to Illinois. So I've learned a lot from my wife and from you. So it's fabulous. So what brought you then to Hilton Head? What was it that brought you, and what have you enjoyed doing in your life as a rabbi, and specifically in Hilton Head?
Well, I would say when I was looking for a new position, I had a couple opportunities, but initially my wife was the one who said, you should take them seriously. They're building a brand new campus, which is what they were in the midst of doing. Sounds like an exciting future. And I looked at the architectural plans and I said, well, that's a good start. They really wanted to do something first class, and they did. So I went, and I think when you apply for a position, it's not about being qualified. It's about whether there is a connection with the leadership and the rabbi, and whether they feel it's a good fit. So it turned out to be a pretty good fit. And what I've loved about being here, besides the weather and living next to the ocean, is the people are generous of spirit as well. I've been able to stretch my creativity in areas that I had never dreamed that I could do, in terms of being a columnist for the newspaper, in terms of teaching at the university a class. I've been able to do things that have been really great, and at the same time focus on the pastoral work and build the congregation. So I think we have built it in terms of its programming, in terms of its staffing, and being the congregation of the Low Country, so to speak. Our membership goes from Sea Pines and on Island to Okatee. So we got people from all over coming to us. And I do a lot of different things to reach out to them, and I have pretty much a free hand to experience and experiment with what I'm doing personally. I think in the community, they've been very, very receptive towards my inroads in the community and projecting the Jewish community's presence, which has been an issue in the past. So I think that these are all, in my tenure, I would hope to think that I have contributed to bringing the Jewish community out front and showing the talent of this community and its congregation to make a difference for good in the community. So that's in a nutshell. But I have something to tell you, Rabbi Haas, that you might
Sure.
be of interest. That I've done something, all these things I'm telling you about have been done over the years. We're talking 11 years. But one new thing that I decided to do that may make you may shake your head at me, and that is I had a conversation with the sheriff of Beaufort County,
Oh,
which is a
cool.
huge, huge county, and I've been invited and I've assumed the position of being a police chaplain
Very
officer.
cool.
So I'm going to work with the sheriff's department in a time when we have to be awful cautious about divisiveness and crime and race and officers, how they are under pressure and sometimes, have issues. I think that, and particularly with anti-Semitism around the corner, I feel like Jewish communities, synagogues would do well to maintain close relations with law enforcement. Very important thing. And it's important to be able to talk to police, to sheriff's deputies, and to have a trust because criminals are dangerous, but I've learned that officers are also they have guns too. And if you can't help them with their issues, it creates a dangerous situation potentially for the citizens. So I think I can do good for them. And I'm hoping to, so now I wear a badge and I'm available to them. I meet with them. I talk with them from time to time when they need somebody. And I think that it's a new experience and I'm looking forward to more.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And I mean, I thought we thought about that for me as well, but the sheriff said I was a little too intimidating, and so it wouldn't work.
I could see that.
Yeah.
See that.
So before we continue, Terry or Arlene or Jeff, do you have any questions before I continue? Okay, so now that you've been in Hilton Head and you've been there 11 years, established, what are some of the issues that the community, both the Jewish community and the outside community of Hilton Head, are dealing with? Even though we're only an hour away, we have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences, so we don't always understand here what you guys are dealing with. And you may want to fix the camera again, just so we can see. There we go. Handsome man.
Well, I think that probably many of your listeners who are in the Savannah area are I'm going to guess, with all due respect to them, and I have, officiated at many services before you came, have a lot of respect for your congregation. But I think that many in Savannah don't really understand what the Low Country is about in terms of it as a small metropolitan and series of communities. Most people think of Hilton Head as a resort place. And so when you ask them whether they're from Savannah or Augusta, yeah, I know Hilton Head. Yeah, oh, sure, I have a condo there, or I've been to dinner there, or I've gone to the beach there, but it's a thriving community in every aspect of life. And I think it's an education for people to really grasp what goes on in terms of it being a modern society that that has its growth issues. I think the big issue here is growth. Hilton Head has gone through its major growth spurt. Bluffton is really in a growth dimension, and all of the construction going out on 278 is definitely going to have a repercussion on our communities in terms of managing growth and the environment, schools, security and law enforcement, lots of people coming in. The fact that this community played a major role in electing a Democrat congressman tells you the diversity and demographics of the community has changed. I'm not advocating for Democrats or Republicans, but you have to understand that is a definite change in the ability in terms of Hilton Head.
We're losing you again, Rabbi Loom. We lost you again.
Okay.
And now we got you back.
I think having people who are your workers that are employed that can afford to work, let alone to live on the island. I think that's a big issue. And we're struggling with housing on that because it's expensive to live in Hilton Head. It's a pricey area, but people who are your landscapers, your teachers, all these people have to have a place to live too. Otherwise, they can get employment other places. So and don't have to drive as far. So I think that's another issue in terms of the community. We don't have our own police force that does all the law enforcement. I think it's coming to grips with the diversity question about whether it be gay and lesbians to race. And we are a maturing community in regards to not just being a seniors community. We are mostly that, but we're dealing with people from all over the country that move here. And I should tell you, after the interesting thing is after during this pandemic, which will be with us unfortunately for quite a while, we've noticed an explosion in the real estate market down here, or up here from your perspective, up here in real estate, because people are leaving all over the place from the Northeast to come and buy homes and live here, and they can work remotely. Why not live and get away from those crowded suburbs and cities where people are being infected and dying? So that's what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing. We're getting a lot of people, Jewish people, who are moving down here for those reasons. So I hope that gives you a sense. I'm just waiting for a AAA baseball team to come in. That would be the best thing. And I think it's a very live and let live community. Bluffton has exploded, so I'm driving by downtown Bluffton as we speak, and it's there's a lot happening here. It wouldn't be bad if we had and what's really great is you can go to Savannah, which we love, and go to some of our museums and all the wonderful things that Savannah has. And I think that people from Savannah should come up and see some of the local highlights. I think they would be very impressed. It would be something good for them too. So that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and again, Hilton Head has, they get major musical productions. They've got beautiful beaches and restaurants, and again, so there's a lot to do there. So I think a lot of people do go back and forth, but some people obviously don't. But it's again, and it's probably very renowned in terms of the world, that everybody knows about Hilton Head. So it's a wonderful place. What is the Jewish community doing right now during this pandemic?
Hunkering down, sheltering in. I started
and I was going to ask you about that right now. The next thing was, what are you doing now?
Right now, am I doing right now?
Yeah.
I'm driving over to the university where I will be giving the students their midterm exam. So I hope you'll pray that I get there in good health. But right now, what I think most of our congregants are doing is just sheltering in place. They are a vulnerable population at risk based on their age. They are vulnerable with pre-existent preconditions, and they should be careful. So we've had to work around that with regard to our worship services, and we have. I think the temple has invested a lot of resources into compensating and bringing the services to people through visual prayer, tefillah. We just installed a huge project of installing drop-down screens and projectors mounted into the ceiling, so high tech as it can get. I think that our congregants are, we've had about, not many, thank God, but we've had a few contract the virus. And that's been rough on those families, but they have all come through. And that's the good news. Nobody has perished. We've had some real issues with regard to the community as a whole and the scope of wearing masks. How many, how far does that go in social distancing? But I think most of us are pretty good about wearing masks. The synagogue building itself is closed, except for when I go in or when we have services every Shabbat. We're having tonight, we're having a huge program interviewing the candidates for the United States Senate tonight and tomorrow night. Lindsey Graham and Jamie Harrison. I'm doing the same thing with them that you're doing with me. So we're going to have a panel discussion. So we've learned to go virtual, Rabbi Haas. We've learned how to take a congregation and turn it into the best that we can into a virtual programming machine, but we still do some outdoor activities. Last week we did a Havdalah pizza in the hut next to the sukkah for the young families that brought their cars. And when we were strict about social distancing, they all shook the lulav and the etrog and ate their pizza, socialized. And on the 30th, we're going to do our first outdoor Shabbat service under the portico of our synagogue called Shabbat Under the Stars. We're going to give it a shot. And we will have security to make sure we help everybody stay socially distant, chairs, everything. So we're trying new things because people really want community. They crave community. At the same time, there's some that, will stay in their homes and that's it. So there's not one consensus. So some people want to do stuff. We want to give them an opportunity to do it safely. And we have, physicians monitoring it, and we've had no problems. So that's where we're at. And some of the things that we're doing, I think, are pretty cutting edge and exciting. And the thing that I would just say to you is about technology. It can be a blessing. I believe that. And it can be a real constraint as well in terms of stifling kavanah. And it's really important to balance those two for the congregant's sake. We've been able to do Sunday school virtual, and we'll be looking at potentially some hybrid models based on what our county school system is doing. And I think that will be helpful. So we're looking at all this. We have a pandemic committee that's monitors and supports our activities and gives feedback to what we're doing. So it's a pretty good operation. And and I would say, in fairness to everybody and all the clergy and the music staff, it's exhausting to deal with some of the stress and and anxiety that our young families to our older families are experiencing. I would say that any rabbi would agree with me that if they're in a congregation, that they would be sensing that something is different, and they have to cope extra hard with a lot of anxiety from people that comes out in different ways. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think some of it's very similar to what we're doing, and some of it's very different. It's always nice to ideas. Anybody have any questions before we continue? So again, we're interviewing Rabbi Brad Bloom, who's the rabbi in Hilton Head. A wonderful man. He's been there for about 11 years. And of course, he went to school in Cincinnati and then was a rabbi in Sacramento. So,
Rabbi,
I'll go Flossie.
thank you. Okay, we had to go on. We're eating lunch. We didn't want to dessert. Rabbi Bloom, I want to thank you. I thanked you the day of the service, but you officiated at Alan Kufker's memorial service, and you did a beautiful job. I thank you for continuing with the mood and the feeling of Alan and just how everyone felt. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. It was a privilege.
Yes, it was. That's why people were there. A lot of us really didn't know him well, but out of respect for who he was, to be there.
And you know, the one thing I just want to say is that besides the fact that he worked with me over the years in our Yom HaShoah service, I work hard. I try and work hard, at least, to try and say, as a rabbi, you know, I serve my congregation first, but as a rabbi of a congregation, my congregation supports me 100% in reaching out and being available, no strings attached, to you know, help out the community, other Jewish communities in the region. And when they called me from Oseh Shalom, president called me, I was you know, it was a quick yes, and I'm honored to have been asked to do that, because he really is he was a diamond in the midst of this low country. I really think they benefited greatly over the years from him. All of us did. So appreciate your comments. Thank you.
But we didn't hear you play your musical instrument.
Well, you know why? Because I was wanting to play my Native American flute, but I, believe it or not, rabbis do have an humility. So once I heard all the music that Mr. Kupfer had arranged, all that dramatic, beautiful music, I said, whatever I could offer would be, it wouldn't add to anything that he had such beautiful, you know, tunes. So I said, less is more. Less is more.
So, and Jeff,
my wife.
Oh, sorry. Jeff, you had a question.
Yes, no, it's actually, Rabbi, I know you said AAA, but I'd even settle for single A baseball down here.
Yeah.
Well, as an Orioles fan, which I am born and bred to the day I die, what I wouldn't give to sit in any ballpark. I used to come down to you to watch the Sand Gnats.
Right, when they were here.
With all due respect, please, I love Savannah for all that it offers, but I just can't bring myself to go see the bananas or whatever they're called.
Well, actually, the Bananas, you talk about marketing and how they get across. They play the full houses. They're sold out for the season before the course.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, you
did not get a crowd.
They are sold out every game. Larry had a question. You're still on mute, Larry, just to let you know.
Yeah, Rabbi, nice having you as a guest here. I had a couple of things. You had mentioned this evening or tomorrow you're having an interview or a debate with the senatorial candidates.
Yes.
Is that?
Would you like me to tell you?
Is there a website that you? Is it a?
Yes.
YouTube, or would you?
No, I will. Let me explain.
We lost you again, Rabbi Bloom, so you may have to repeat what you're saying.
We have a form that I started in June where I interview uh, people on themes, like we did COVID-19. So what I decided to do was to use my, whatever relationships I have with the Republicans and Democrats. And I said, I think it would be nice to have an interview, separate interviews with each of the two candidates.
Okay.
Now, I was able to get an hour with each, which is, I'm proud of that fact, and proud of the fact that that both sides would trust me with and allow me to have the candidates' time. So I have interviewed them. You would be turning into the Temple website. You can follow, you'll see a thing called Stream Spot. You just click it on and you're right there. We will show the interview that I conducted with Senator Gray.
We lost you again, Rabbi Bloom.
PM. Tomorrow night with Jay Harrison or Race. Tell me when you have me.
We just got you back. All we know is that Senator Graham has changed his name to Senator Graham. So we added a bunch of A's in there.
So I'll be interviewing Senator Graham tonight. Re-recording. I did Supreme Court stuff happened, and I will then have a panel that will appear in the Zoom. I have eight people, 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats, who will comment on the interview. And then tomorrow night will be Jamie Harrison. And I have the same panel that will appear and critique Mr. Harrison. So I think it's going to be a fabulous experience to have a rabbi do this and to focus on issues of Jewish concern, particularly on Israel and other matters of religious values. That's my goal. And to teach the community, this is really the important thing in the panel discussion, that Jews are capable of being on both sides of the aisle, having their strong views, and being able to discuss these views without losing their civility, and to be able to preserve menschlichkeit. I feel very strongly about that. I'm sometimes very disappointed in some behavior of Jewish people on both sides. And I think my job as a rabbi is to try and teach menschlichkeit. And when it comes to the political process, so we've had a lot. We're prepared. I think the candidate part is going to be the most important, I guess, but most interesting. But I feel
We lost you. We lost you again, Rabbi. I apologize.
The part is listening to Jewish people discuss and debate, and we have a pretty impressive group of panelists who has experience. Okay, all right.
So if I
I double check. Well, 1 second. Let me just say. You said tonight and tomorrow at 8 p.m. because we lost you. We'll look it up online. And we lost you again, but I'm going to have Larry ask a question.
Yeah, so just for clarification, you've already done the interview, it sounds like, and the panel discussion. So should go into the website and see the interview before the panel discussion, or are they going to show the interview? Is tonight the only time that we'll see the interview and the panel discussion? I don't know if you heard my question.
Yes.
I think what he's saying, sorry, 7 o'clock tonight. It sounded like both the panel, it sounded like the interview would be at 7 and the panel afterwards, but we'll have to check that for you. I think we lost Rabbi Bloom, but one of the other similarities between Hilton Head and Savannah is that while most Jews live in South Florida, the Northeast, or California, and so they live in areas that are often 90+% Democratic, so it leaves a very different feel Whereas down here, where we have both Republicans and Democrats in large quantities, we have to be that much more aware that we have to keep an open mind and listen to what other people have to say, even if we don't agree with them. I know we held the first debate between the congressional candidates here a few years ago, and of course we had people there both in support and against each one. But it's nice that you can say, hey, we're going to have a debate, we're going to disagree, we're going to agree, then we're going to shake hands and hang out and understand that we're all Jewish still. And that's something we're all dealing with in the South. I know a lot of times when we have national meetings and national leaders are trying to dictate policy in certain ways, assuming that everyone has a very similar view. And of course, the Southern congregations have to step in and say, that works well for you, but you have to understand, our population's 40, 60, 50, 50. And so we can't be, starting a policy that's going to upset a political balance. For us, politics is something we enjoy, but we only really try and meddle with politics when it comes to anti-Semitism or racism or issues particular to that. So, but I think we finished with Rabbi Blue, but only a few minutes early. And he is a great guy, as you know. If you have any questions about the program, which sounds really interesting, tomorrow night and Wednesday night, we'll have to double check that those are the nights. We can easily just go on their website. I'm sure they have it. I imagine they'll have the first showing tonight at 7, and then like so many other programs, it'll remain on the website afterwards. I know we've had a really wonderful time when it comes to technology with our YouTube site, where we put almost everything there. And obviously we don't have any big programs right now because we just finished the high holidays, but we have all of our teaching sessions, all of our services, and we'll be having a lot more things coming up, including eventually a documentary on the Jews of Georgia, which people are just finishing. It's a major documentary that hopefully we'll be showing next year. Larry.
Yeah, just a couple of things, maybe for you, Rabbi. Question for you. Did the rabbi Rabbi Bloom talk at all about how many churches open in Hilton Head? I know in South Carolina, you had said that you have a group that gets together, and the group basically, I think, except for maybe one church, you said, decided not to open for services. Are any of the churches open in Hilton Head area? Do you know?
He did not mention that. In fact, he didn't. I assumed he wasn't because they're videoing, although he says he has services. I know in our area, which includes southern South Carolina, most churches were not, but a lot of them have started to open up. I do speak once in a while at the Unitarian church near you guys, and they are closed. They do everything virtually, but they do allow a few people in the sanctuary at the same time for the filming.
Is Savannah still closed?
Some of them have opened.
They have.
And those who have opened, almost all have opened in some sort of limited fashion in terms of, and we're also going to be discussing this at our congregation. Can we open our doors on a Saturday morning or Friday night, but probably more likely Saturday morning, and where we'll only allow 30 or 40 people as opposed to the 65 to 100 we usually get. And because when you have to create physical distancing, you don't have to distance everybody from everybody. You have to distance everybody from their group. So if you're there with a family of 3, you can all stay together. So it's not like you have to find 6 to 8 feet apart for every individual. We have opened up for bar and bat mitzvahs, that the families are allowed to have 30 people within the family come in for a private service. We'll be doing our first one this coming Saturday, so we're going to see how it works. And we have done it for small weddings, as that very, if they have a really small wedding, that they can use the sanctuary as well. But for the most part, we're still closed, but we'll see how that works in the future.
How is the participation rate for the high holidays compared to the in-person services?
Well, the participation rate for the high holidays was off the charts on a lot of congregations. I mean, we had a high of 7,000 people watch one of our services. Our lowest one was probably second day Rosh Hashanah. We still had, I think, 3 or 4. We were looking to 200 to 300 at the most, but I think people were popping around. And I know there were people who were watching in Australia. I got emails from there. So it was really an interesting thing for a lot of congregations that chose to really go all out, which we did. Some congregations, the big ones, have been doing this for years. So I've heard of a few that got up to 30 or 40,000 maybe views. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know we're probably well over 7,000 with our one service. And many of the others, our Rosh Hashanah evening service, I think had over 3,000. That probably what led to the other ones. Even our smaller services or family services was getting like 200 views, which of course is really probably means 400 people, especially for family services. So I think people are taking advantage, but I think we want to, figure out how we can support people. I know he goes and visits people outside. It's something I'm thinking of starting to do as well, which I've done a little bit of, but to do organized. So again, we're doing our best, and whether it's in Hilton Head or in other places. So as for us, we're finishing here. Next week, I haven't got the person yet, but in 2 weeks, we're going to interview Curtis Purdy, who was new as a city alderman. And it's very interesting because right before COVID hit, we had the elections, of course, in November last year. So all of the we had all of the people who became aldermen. They had the induction, I think, in late January, and every single person on our city council is new except for one. Only one person won re-election. So
One person, one re-election.
For the city council.
Every single one. And so they started, and a month later, COVID hit. So you have all of these new people. The mayor was new. He had been on the city council. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on here as they try and
Very dynamic city.
everything. Yeah.
An entirely new city council and a new mayor.
Really?
Yeah. There was only one city council person, although the mayor had been on the city council, so his position was open. So there was no incumbent there, but yeah, only one person won. So it was a really interesting. I've never seen that happen before, but obviously they're now dealing with all this. So we'll be interviewing him in 2 weeks, and next week we're going to see who else we're going to interview, as we have a couple of fires out there. If there's anybody who would like us to ask somebody, please let us know. And again, always a pleasure. We look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. As tomorrow we're going to talk about 19th century philanthropists, Jewish philanthropists, including people like Moses Montefiore and of course Levi Strauss and Guggenheim and those people. So have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I'll invite everybody to say goodbye, and
Bye.
there's people here live and everybody else on YouTube. We still have a few left, and we'll see you
Bye,
later.
Jane and Larry.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.